Ryan had spent the previous night at the harbor helping Jamie protect drug supplies. Luigi had not shown up, likely at Livia's urging, but Jamie still invited Ryan to stay at his house, his kindness making the courier want to adopt him. Ryan spent the day in Mecran's bunker, settling matters. He contacted Alchemo, who was expected to arrive in New Rome the next day to help take over the bunker's mainframe. With Dr. Stitch and Tyranno's long-distance assistance, Ryan would have the best medical team in the world to find a cure for the psycho condition. He planned to dedicate the night to Livia. Matthias proposed cleaning up Dynami's upper echelons. Though they had planned to wait for Hector Manata to retire, they could hasten his departure. Ryan shrugged, saying he had seen Hector Manata fall many times and suggested his children might switch to a safer, better product than one capable of causing a pandemic. Matthias warned Fallout would not follow Hector, but Enrique might once provided with data showing the destruction Bloodstream could cause, especially if his family had lied to him. Alphonse, however, was another matter. He would not surrender Bloodstream, even for a better alternative. Ryan asked why Alphonse wouldn't surrender it, noting he was a commie infiltrator who wanted to turn everyone into a genome, perhaps even for free. Shroud remained skeptical, pointing out that Fallout controlled the knockoff supply and, with Tyranno's cure, could remove powers at will, unlike Mecran's variants. Ryan considered Shroud's point and admitted it was likely accurate. Atom Smasher planned to make everyone a genome to prevent Augustus from monopolizing power, but did not wish to coexist with other organizations and lied to close allies so Dynamis could monopolize knockoff elixirs. If Dynamis could both grant and remove superpowers, it could become a true superpower, keeping people in line through fear of losing their knockoff genome abilities and monopolizing the market. Shroud explained Fallout cared less about side effects than societal control. If he were truly a hero, he would not have created something so dangerous. Alphonse Manata believed only in his vision and would not deviate unless forced. Ryan asserted he could stop time, recalling Bianca's sacrifice. Shroud doubted this, ranking Alphonse as the third most dangerous genome in Italy behind Augustus and Leo. Ryan insisted he could do it with the base's resources. Shroud insisted the base would have to be destroyed eventually, acknowledging it might hold something to defeat Fallout or Augustus, but warning of the risk of dangerous weapons spreading to the public. Even distributing Mecran's knockoff formula could weaken genome warlords' positions, but society was too fragile for widespread access to such weapons. Ryan agreed but vowed to destroy the base only after it helped solve the current crisis. Shroud crossed his arms and asked if Ryan truly believed psychos could be cured. Ryan asked if Shroud believed it. Shroud replied no, but said if there was even the slightest chance, he could not stop Ryan from trying, as it would help too many lives. Shroud mentioned that one genome Ryan had called specialized in brains could cure mental illnesses, Alzheimer's, and psycho-brain tumors, potentially helping Ryan too. Though Ryan could not see looking glass face behind his mask, the vigilante turned his head thoughtfully and asked why the alchemist had distributed the elixirs in the first place. Ryan guessed to improve the human condition. Shroud agreed but lamented that they had used the elixirs to ravage the world. He wondered why Mecran had built weapons rather than medical supplies, concluding that not even superpowers could change human nature. Ryan responded that there would always be rotten apples like late Adam, but most people needed only the right circumstances to turn their lives around. Anyone could choose right over wrong, even a spoiled, self-obsessed brat with a busted power. Shroud chuckled and revealed that she sculpted in her spare time. Ryan guessed she had shown her boyfriend her gallery the previous night and remarked it was pretty neat. Matthias continued warmly, remarking that Fortuna was talented at sculpting and that he had underestimated her, thinking she relied solely on luck. He noted that she had won €500,000 in lottery winnings that morning, but intended to distribute it to Rusttown's orphans rather than keep it for herself. His fondness for Fortuna had grown significantly after the previous day's battle. Ryan summarized Fortuna as a golden retriever, loud, lacking respect for personal space, but surprisingly warm and loyal underneath. Matthias added that she was an even better person than he had initially thought. The courier leaned back, asking if Matthias would be transparent with Fortuna on their next date. Matthias joked about turning back time to make his own dates go well before admitting he planned to clear things up with her, but only after she stopped working as a hitman for Augustus, which he considered a deal-breaker. Ryan explained that, unlike other members of her group, Fortuna wasn't in it for killing but wanted to protect Livia first and foremost, which he found almost romantic. Shroud's voice shifted from amused to serious as he asked if Ryan was dating Fortuna to turn Augustus' daughter around. Ryan replied that he asked her out simply because he wanted to, confessing his attraction to blue genomes shorter than himself. Shroud warned Ryan that giving Fortuna access to their base was dangerous, questioning what would happen if she changed her mind and informed Augustus. Ryan defended his trust in Fortuna, stating she had helped him when he needed it and he wanted to return return the favor. He acknowledged that her father would destroy the world for her sake if he had to, and she didn't deserve to bear her sire's crimes on her conscience. Shroud cautioned that Ryan couldn't save everyone, especially from themselves, but Ryan felt compelled to try. Changing the subject, Ryan said that after Alchemo arrived, they would use Fortuna to access the mainframe, confirm his information about other Mecran bases, and unlock the self-destruct mechanism. Shroud said he would have to inform Leo about Ryan, even if Ryan turned back time again, as he couldn't keep it secret. Ryan teased, asking if that was true even for his cute, beautiful eyes. Shroud chuckled and replied that not even those would sway him, then inquired if Ryan could carry others through time, assuming it was only mental since there weren't many versions of him running around. Ryan explained he had a procedure to transfer information directly into someone's brain, but the past self would have to submit to it. Shroud shook his head, saying he was too paranoid to let anyone alter his brain, even if he trusted them beforehand, and that he might not even accept such a procedure at Leo's urging, whom he respected more than anyone. Ryan had expected as much, knowing only Alchemo, who understood the technology, and Saren, who had nothing left to lose, would likely undergo the memory transfer unconditionally. Even Len remained undecided. He said he was trying to improve a system to bypass that extra step but had no confirmation yet. Shroud admitted his discomfort, feeling Ryan held all the cards while he could only go along. Ryan pointed out that he had trusted Shroud enough to share his greatest secret as well, naming him Safelight, and that only a few knew his true phenomenal cosmic power. Shroud wondered aloud what adventures had led Ryan to trust him so much. Ryan recalled how they had defeated the Meta gang together once, though lightning, but had destroyed the city after Shroud recruited Atom Cat. Shroud replied dryly that it was good to know, but lamented that Atom Kitten would clearly be happier with the carnival than with Dynamis. He expressed interest in Felix Varon, believing he had great potential as a hero and a courageous heart. Ryan asked if Felix was as much of a hero as the panda. Shroud scoffed and invited Ryan to come with him to see for himself. The vigilante led Ryan into the bunker's atrium, where they found the transformed folding paper sheets under Len's watch. Saren was playing pool near a pile of books, including René Descartes' Discours de la Method. Shroud showed Ryan an exquisitely folded paper mantis, folding it so fast Ryan barely saw the paws move. The construct joined for others representing a monkey, a tiger, a crane, and a snake. Saren snickered, calling it a nice superpower, and asked if Shroud could unlock Rubik's Cubes too. Shroud replied dryly that one of his teammates, Origami, could turn herself into paper sharp enough to slice throats and could even slice through Saren's suit. Saren taunted him for being salty while focusing on her game. Shroud warned her to earn his trust first, threatening to slay her himself if she sold them out as she had her previous employer. Saren told Ryan's hat pal that if he could truly cure her, he had nothing to fear from her and urged him not to make her wait too long. Ryan ignored their banter to focus on his bear disciple. He noted that even he couldn't fold paper that fast, despite mastering the skill years ago. He asked the panda if he was truly a martial arts genius or if his brilliance extended to all Eastern disciplines. Len shook her head, explaining that the panda had run tests and picked up origami in minutes, and had learned French just 5 pages into Descartes' book. The panda said the more he read, the more it made sense. Len theorized that the panda could learn almost any skill at an accelerated pace, quickly picking up new languages and gaining new skills through osmosis. Ryan reflected that mastering a skill usually took 10,000 hours, but bears only needed half of that. He asked how enhanced learning helped the panda learn to fly. The panda described his vision turning blue, then recalling Bruce Lee's flying kick from the Green Hornet and mimicked kung fu moves with his paws, saying that was how he learned martial arts but had never been this good before. In half an hour, the panda had mastered kung fu, origami, and Descartes. Ryan dreaded to imagine what the panda could achieve in a week, suspecting he couldn't learn what a normal human couldn't, but anything else was fair game, including arithmetic, philosophy, martial arts, and perhaps even genius technology if given time to observe it. Bruce Lee's moves were made for humans, yet the panda's second power allowed him to adapt them to his beastly body proportions. His arrogant young disciple had ascended to shatter the heavens. Ryan realized he needed to run tests on his own after creating the new iteration of the Saturn armor. He planned to add improvements to deal with Alphonse Manata, such as switching the chest blaster with the gravity cannon, hoping it would help against the nuclear disaster and maybe even lightning, but Ryan said he should prepare for his date, noting that Livia had asked him to pick her up at 9 and to be on time. For once, he didn't dare be fashionably late. The panda cheered him on, saying he knew the tension was palpable. Len, however, seemed less enthusiastic and asked Ryan if she could talk to him alone for a moment. Ryan nodded, and his adoptive sister led him outside to the corridor overlooking the hangars. Henriette was playing with the children near the submarine, the dog delighted to have company. The group brought much levity to an otherwise claustrophobic, lifeless place. Len stood by the corridor window with her arms folded, glancing out as she brought up Ryan and Livia. Ryan admitted it was hard to explain. The genius held her breath and asked if her other self had known in past loops. Ryan explained he had told Len how he felt, and they had decided to remain family afterward. Len's gaze darkened as she looked at the Mechren, made submarine floating in the bunker's water access. She mentioned they could reach the United States with it, crossing the Atlantic Sea. Ryan responded sadly that even he couldn't turn back time that far, despite trying many times. Len bit her lower lip and hesitated, leaving her sentence unfinished. Ryan understood what she was reluctant to say, how their relationship could have ended. They had parted in tears, and though they had started to pick up the pieces, some were lost forever. She suggested they could leave this place after dealing with their father. Ryan refused, saying he couldn't do that anymore because he had too many people to fight for now. Len protested that their father's daughter would be fine, and that if others wanted to tear apart New Rome, they could have it. Ryan asked if he should let her father kill people for her sake, immediately regretting the question when Len flinched. She avoided his gaze and guessed he didn't want Livia to end up like her. Ryan then asked if they could reach Antarctica with the submarine. Len nodded, confused by his implication. Ryan spoke of the many mysteries and wonderful places to explore around the world, urging Len not to bury herself under the sea. He reminded her that even whales rise up to breathe fresh air sometimes. Len admitted she didn't know what to make of everything, including the carnival's role in their father's death. Ryan asked if she would let the carnival operate on her to remove her father's blood tracker. Len said it was the last part she had left of him. Ryan recalled a conversation with his own elixir about letting the dead rest and how trying to keep them alive only causes suffering. Len remained silent, her face blank. Ryan reached for her shoulder, but she avoided his touch. He accepted it, hoping his words would resonate. He reassured her that she was family and that nothing would change that, not even anything involving Livia. She would always be his best friend, sister, and most important person. Len bit her lip, unsure how to respond. Ryan smiled and told her not to say anything if she didn't want to. He emphasized that she was not alone and never had been, that the children loved her, and he would always be there to help her rise when she stumbled. They shared a comfortable silence when a black sphere phased through the hangar and collapsed into nothingness without harming anyone. Ryan joked about not giving Len diabetes, and to his surprise, she chuckled and relaxed, his wit breaking through her shell. Len brought up Ryan's memory machine and asked if he would try it to recover his other self's memories. She nodded when he asked if she would. Ryan explained that even after what happened between them, she had offered him her hand, and now it was time he did the same for her. Later, Ryan found Livia waiting for him at the Deadland Motel. He drove his Plymouth Fury, which he had repaired and masked with perfume to cover the junkyard stench. He wore an elegant black jacket with a purple polo shirt, avoiding bright colors that Darkling would have loved. He reflected that raiding Dynami's Kashmir factory or using Mechren's matter replicator was out of the question without serious consequences. Livia had put much effort into her appearance, wearing an elegant sleeveless dress, golden bracelets, black stockings, red high heels, golden earrings, and a crimson rose in her hair. Her black eyeliner contrasted with her sapphire eyes and silver hair flowing down her back. Though she wasn't as beautiful as her best friend Fortuna, Ryan found her quite lovely, a true princess. She had not seen him yet in the darkness, so Ryan watched her from afar as she waited in the parking lot, fidgeting and letting out a long breath to calm herself. Nervous about how the date would end, she had not anticipated it. Ryan drove up to her side, ending her silent anxiety. Livia immediately smiled warmly upon noticing him. Ryan jokingly asked if she had ordered a pumpkin carriage. She teased him about his car turning into a vegetable at midnight as she sat beside him, her perfume smelling of rose and strawberry. She noted they only had 3 hours. Ryan assured her that he could time travel and make 3 hours last a lifetime. Livia closed the car door and said she preferred he bring her home before 2 in the morning to avoid upsetting her father. Ryan asked if she had ever had a sleepless night out in town, amused that it was about time he came into her life. Livia blushed and said she wasn't that sheltered. With her power, she could experience wild moments by proxy without hangovers or side effects. Ryan pointed out that watching wasn't the same as living. Livia admitted she didn't enjoy parties much, preferring simpler moments with a few friends because too many interactions overwhelmed her power. Ryan asked if cancel blocked her visions. Livia nodded shortly but said she didn't like Greta, who was capable of anything and could be as violent as Adam the Ogre if motivated. She frowned as they approached the highway where Ryan and Felix had once chased her Aunt Pluto in a car. When Livia asked where they were going, Ryan replied simply, "Away." She blinked in surprise, asking if it was away from the city. Ryan explained explained he figured she had probably visited all of New Rome's restaurants, either directly or through her power, but there was one place he was sure she had never been before. Livia expressed skepticism about finding such a place within an hour's drive of New Rome, then grinned wickedly, suggesting he intended to take her out of the city to ravish her in the wilderness. Ryan asked if she had brought a chastity belt, noting it had been a while since he had unlocked one. Livia's smile turned coy and playful, revealing she was not as innocent as she appeared. She warned that if her father heard Ryan's words, he would have him struck down. Ryan replied that he had a lightning rod in the car boot and questioned whether her father even knew she was in a car with a dashing courier. Livia's mischievous smile answered for her. She explained that her father only allowed her to date an Auguste and mistrusted anyone outside their clan, which meant he wouldn't let Felix near her again, despite her souring smile. Ryan mused that she was disobeying her father even now, living a dangerous life. Livia chuckled, noting that Ryan's life was more dangerous, and admitted he was the first man brave enough to ask her out, as most were too frightened. She looked at him warmly and said that was one of the things she liked about him. He dared it all. Ryan replied that she hadn't seen anything yet, pressed the accelerator, and asked if her seatbelt was tightly on. As the Plymouth Fury raced on the highway, accelerating from 100 to 150 kilometers per hour, Ryan switched the chronoradio to Mad Max 2's main theme. They passed two cars, violating all road safety laws. Livia pleaded for him to stop, clutching his arm and screaming as they narrowly avoided a collision. Ryan warned not to try this at home, using brief bursts of time, stopped to evade other vehicles. Livia's scream of fear turned into laughter as adrenaline surged through her veins, and the Plymouth Fury reached its maximum velocity. Ryan's modifications allowed the car to exceed 300 kilometers per hour, turning the world around them into a blur. Other cars became spots of color, and the highway stretched into a tunnel of light. Ryan thought that if only he could have driven his Plymouth Fury instead of the Pandamobile when Pluto came for his head, Cruella would never have come near his car. When they neared their destination, Ryan activated a hidden button, causing the car hood to open and reveal a genius device, a particle accelerator tip emitting tiny light spheres that stretched reality apart. He asked Livia if she had watched Back to the Future. She responded with a panicked, exhilarated scream as particles engulfed the Plymouth Fury, stars above falling in a rain of light as reality shifted around them. Space stretched until it shattered, and the car emerged on the other side. Ryan hit the brakes and deactivated the device. The Plymouth Fury slowed beneath alien skies on a highway without other cars. Livia exhaled heavily, recovering from the adrenaline rush, and Ryan noticed her left hand gripping his right tightly, likely seized instinctively at maximum speed. Ryan brushed his thumb against her warm fingers, and she squeezed tighter in return. He asked if she was okay, but she broke their hand contact and slapped him behind the head. She laughed nervously, calling him a madman and admitting the experience was insane. Ryan promised they would have to do it again on the way back. Livia smiled, catching her breath, and asked if he had ever gotten a driver's license. Ryan told her not to ask too much. Livia giggled and glanced outside, her eyes widening at the world around them. Purple auroras filled the night sky above the highway, shining with the brilliance of stars and containing images of strange places, seas of mercury, clouds of floating ice, green lightning coursing through black, empty space. The highway was deserted except for the Plymouth Fury and seemed to stretch on forever. The surrounding land had turned into a red desert, with another highway visible in the distance. The temperature had risen from chilly to warm and comforting. Livia asked what the place was as they exited the car, astonished. Ryan explained it was a thin place, a natural space anomaly he nicknamed the Midnight Road. Livia pointed to two silhouettes on the second highway, and Ryan raised his hand. The distant silhouette imitated him. Livia said she couldn't see anything, tears at the edges of her eyes, referring not to her vision. They sat at the highway's edge, feet dangling above the desert. Ryan offered Livia a sushi box and chopsticks. After wiping away her tears, Livia asked if space folded back. Ryan confirmed, explaining the highway stretched for 30 kilometers before looping back, shorter on the sides. Livia asked if he made the place or if another genome built it. Ryan shook his head, saying it was a natural phenomenon accessible only with genius tech. He described the colored dimensions above their realities, beyond space and time as humans understood it, with other realms sideways following the same time stream. Livia guessed it was an alternate universe. Ryan corrected her, saying it was more like a cave inside a mountain, with the mountain being Earth's reality, a place where space, time folded due to gravitational or electromagnetic anomalies. He thought the place was close to the purple world, a border realm between their universe and the big crossroads of all space and time. Livia added that she could not observe anything within the colored dimensions except the blue one, which explained why she couldn't detect Ryan, since he existed in two dimensions at once. Ryan Ryan noticed Livia's lack of enthusiasm for her food and asked if she didn't like it. She admitted she hated sushi and apologized. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Livia quickly reassured him that she loved the place and the gesture, which more than made up for the food. Ryan grumbled that he would have to reload, saying the date was not perfect. Livia put a hand on his arm, squeezing it tightly, and insisted that the moment's genuineness was why she enjoyed it so much. Ryan teased her, brushing his index finger against her cheek, causing her to blush deeply. He told her she had a smile to die for. Livia laughed, almost spitting out her food, and asked if that pick-up line ever worked. Ryan said more than she thought. She replied that it didn't work on her and that he would have to do better. Ryan warned she might regret it, claiming he invented lines so powerful some countries made them illegal. Livia rolled her eyes and dared him to prove her wrong. Instead of answering with words, Ryan set the sushi plates aside, grabbed Livia by the waist, and quickly lifted her onto his lap. She let out a squeal of surprise as their feet dangled into the void. Livia laughed, her face flushed so deeply that the courier wondered if she might faint from embarrassment. She exclaimed that Ryan was going too far this time. Ryan replied that his lap felt better than the interdimensional highway's concrete and asked if Her Majesty would prefer a nobler seat. Livia retorted that she ought to have him whipped for his insolence but suspected he might enjoy it. Ryan agreed, calling her mistress. The mafia princess laughed heartily, accepted the throne of Romano as her seat, and made herself comfortable, her back resting against the courier's chest. Ryan sensed her hastening heartbeat beneath her skin. Though the scarlet streak across Livia's face had softened into a light blush, Ryan could tell the situation was new to her. She had only ever dated Felix, who had never been as comfortable with physical contact as Ryan was. Livia pointed a finger at the alien mirages in the skies, images of alien worlds unlike Earth, and asked if Ryan could reach those places. Ryan confirmed he could reach some and planned to visit others one day. She ordered him to take her with him to make up for his bold transgression. Ryan teased her about committing crime after crime, to which Livia coyly replied that she might punish him or maybe not, placing her warm hands on his own. She then asked how he had found out about these thin places and whether he had stumbled into one by accident. Ryan explained that he had learned of them while researching particle physics in Switzerland and warned her not to go to Monaco. Livia asked what was happening there, noting that her power would not show her, and that she had heard nobody who went there came back, though Ryan had said he lived a full life there. Ryan replied darkly that it was shrimps and caviar, until one couldn't take it anymore, which triggered his PTSD. Livia frowned, sensing his unease, and pressed him about something having happened there that hurt him deeply. Ryan's first instinct was to deny the truth, but Livia's firm gaze dissuaded him. He admitted he had stayed there a full life and meant it literally. Livia's expression shifted to horror as she covered her mouth, whispering no. Ryan looked away at the otherworldly desert beneath the highway without speaking. Livia softened her eyes in compassion and asked if that was why he always said he was immortal and whether Len knew. Ryan said no, explaining that Shorty already had enough burdens and ghosts of her own. Livia was the only one who knew. Livia bit her lower lip as if afraid to continue and asked if he had a family. Ryan confessed he never dared to have one, fearing that if his timing was even slightly off during conception, a different child would be born from loop to loop and he wouldn't have survived it mentally. Livia apologized for asking and touched his chin to make him look at her. She confessed she had seen other lives she could have lived with Felix, growing old together, having children, but couldn't make those possibilities true. She acknowledged she wouldn't pretend to understand what he went through because watching was not living, but she knew how deep the pain went. Her hand brushed against his cheek as she promised he didn't have to suffer alone anymore and vowed to help him with his burden. Ryan thanked her, took her left hand, and kissed it gallantly. Now that he had her, he could carry others through time, build lasting friendships, maybe even a family, and finally create a future he was happy with. He promised to return the favor. Livia admitted he already had, more than he knew or should have, and confessed that she had had her power for nearly a decade and a half but had never gone on without it for so long since childhood. It was refreshing but scary. Ryan empathized, saying he felt that way whenever Cancel entered the picture. His power could be a pain but was reassuring. He explained that his elixir had tried to help, remaining at his side for centuries, sharing his hardships and victories. He concluded that the best thing he could offer her was the unexpected. Livia agreed it was a wonderful gift but fell silent, gazing at the alien horizon with something weighing on her mind. Ryan guessed she had seen her father wage war in the future. Livia urged him not to ruin the blissful moment with her sorrows. Ryan teased that he thought he had already beaten her to gloomy confessions and tightened his hold on her waist, brushing his cheek against her neck, saying they would never find better therapists than each other. Livia chuckled bittersweetly and admitted she had seen it. She recalled dreaming one night that Felix would barge into her room riding a white stallion and carry her away from the city, a foolish little girl's dream she hoped would come true someday. Ryan joked about settling for a knight in power armor, adding that lasers were the new swords. Livia playfully asked if he knew dynamis had lightsabers and suggested he grab a blue one. Ryan asked if she would take the red, Queen Crimson. She joked she loved the dark side but preferred him on the side of the angels. Ryan reminded her they had the most fun in their meta run, though the end was grimmer than expected. Livia said no matter how much he tried to hide it, his true self, good and gentle, shone through. She promised to stop what her father planned to do, giving her word. Ryan pledged to help. Livia said he already had, more than he should have, and looked into his eyes, telling him he didn't have to go further. Ryan agreed but said he wanted to. They locked eyes for minutes, Ryan seeing multiple emotions flash through Livia's blue eyes: surprise, compassion, joy, gratitude, and something deeper and more intense. Ryan said it was past midnight and suggested they go. Livia replied not yet, staring at the skies and wanting to stay a little longer. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the auroras. Eventually, Ryan brought Livia back to Mount Augustus, stopping before the fortified fence circling the hill as the clock struck 2 in the morning. He greeted her as princess and asked for her date review, jokingly rating it 10 out of 10, 12.5 without factoring in the food. Livia did not answer. She had spent the whole return trip silent, her head resting against her palm and her eyes gazing beyond the window, perhaps regretting that her blue power now worked again. Ryan cleared his throat, feeling slightly embarrassed by the silence. He called her name. Livia shook her head and said she needed to show him something, peeking out of the car's window at the entrance portal's camera. After a minute of waiting, the doors opened for them. She added that it was if he wanted to see it. Ryan suspected what awaited him but needed confirmation. He asked Livia if she understood that her father would know. She met his gaze, and he realized she had made her choice knowingly, an act of rebellion against her father. Ryan drove the Plymouth Fury upward toward the villa at Mount Augustus summit, noticing guards protecting the property but ignoring them. He parked near the house entrance and exited with Livia, who led him inside through the front door. The villa was dark, but she navigated the whitened corridors with certainty. The home, designed like a Roman villa by lightning but displayed an obsession with marble deity statues and pillars. Ryan focused on following Livia, noticing the shivers along her bare shoulders and the tension in her body. She brought him to a room with a large red door, paused briefly, exhaled heavily, and opened it. Inside was a bedroom nearly as large as his former luxury apartments, decorated in a modern style with paintings of cities, smiling families, and natural wonders on the walls, alongside shelves of dusty books. A reinforced window overlooked a terrace, and a king-sized bed lined one wall. Livia closed the door behind them and sat silently on the mattress, hands joined, avoiding Ryan's gaze. Her face was flushed, breathing short, and she appeared terrified to ask a question. Ryan cleared his throat and addressed her. She then meekly asked if he wanted to kiss her, looking up at him with fear of his reaction. He kissed her, and neither spoke for the rest of the night. Later, Ryan found Livia waiting for him at the Deadland Motel. He arrived in his repaired Plymouth Fury, having masked the junkyard stench with perfume. He had switched from his usual clothes to an elegant black jacket over a purple polo shirt, avoiding bright colors. He lamented that raiding Dynami's Kashmir factory or using Mekran's matter replicator wasn't an option without causing trouble. Livia had also made an effort with her appearance, wearing an elegant sleeveless dress, golden bracelets, black stockings, red high heels, and golden earrings. A crimson rose adorned her silver hair, black eyeliner accentuated her sapphire eyes, and Ryan found her quite lovely, a true princess. She hadn't noticed him yet, standing in the parking lot with hands joined, fidgeting and exhaling deeply to calm herself. Ryan approached, ending her silent anxiety. She smiled warmly upon seeing him. He joked about ordering a pumpkin carriage, and she teased him about the car turning into a vegetable at midnight. She noted they had only 3 hours. Ryan claimed he could time travel and make 3 hours last a lifetime. She replied that she preferred he bring her home before 2 in the morning to avoid upsetting her father. Ryan asked if she had ever had a sleepless night out. She admitted she hadn't been that sheltered, explaining that with her power, she experienced wild moments by proxy without hangovers or side effects. Ryan remarked that watching wasn't the same as living. She said she didn't enjoy parties much and preferred simpler moments with a few friends, as too many interactions overwhelmed her power. Ryan asked if cancel blocked her visions. She nodded but said she didn't like Greta, calling her capable of anything and potentially as violent as Adam the Ogre if motivated. Approaching the highway where Ryan and Felix once chased her Aunt Pluto, she asked where they were going. Ryan said away, explaining he guessed she had visited all of New Rome's restaurants, but there was one place she likely hadn't been. Livia Livia doubted there was such a place within an hour's drive but grinned wickedly, suggesting he intended to take her out to the wilderness to ravish her. Ryan joked about a chastity belt, and she warned that her father would have him struck down if he heard. Ryan mentioned a lightning rod in the car boot and asked if her father knew she was with a dashing courier. Her mischievous smile answered for her. She said her father only trusted Auguste and wouldn't let Felix near her again, her smile turning sour. Ryan mused that she was disobeying her father even now, living a dangerous life. She chuckled, saying not as dangerous as his, and that he was the first man to dare ask her out. She appreciated his daring nature. Ryan replied that she hadn't seen anything yet and asked if her seatbelt was on. She affirmed. As he accelerated, the Plymouth Fury raced along the highway, reaching 150 kilometers per hour while Mad Max 2's main theme played on the chronoradio. They passed two cars, breaking all road safety laws. Livia pleaded for him to stop and screamed as they narrowly avoided a collision. Ryan warned not to try this at home, using brief time, stop bursts to avoid other vehicles. Livia's fear turned to laughter as adrenaline surged, and the car reached maximum velocity. Ryan had modified the Fury to exceed 300 kilometers per hour, turning the world into a blur, other cars into spots of color, and the highway into a tunnel of light. Ryan wished he had driven his Plymouth Fury instead of the Pandamobile when Pluto came for him. Cruella would never have come close to his car. Nearing their destination, Ryan pressed a hidden button, causing the car hood to open and reveal a genius device, the tip of a particle accelerator, from which tiny light spheres emerged, distorting reality. He asked Livia if she had seen Back to the Future, grinning as she responded with a panicked, exhilarated scream while particles enveloped the Plymouth Fury. The stars above cascaded like a rain of light as reality shifted around them. Space stretched and shattered, and the car emerged on the other side. Ryan applied the brakes, deactivating the device, and the Plymouth Fury slowed beneath alien skies on a deserted highway. Livia exhaled heavily, recovering from the adrenaline rush, and Ryan noticed she held his right hand tightly with her left, a grip she must have instinctively taken at maximum speed. He brushed his thumb against her warm fingers, and she squeezed tighter. Ryan asked if she was okay. Instead of answering, Livia broke their hand contact and slapped him behind the head. She called him a madman with a nervous laugh, admitting the experience was insane. Ryan said they would have to do it again on the way back. Livia smiled, catching her breath, and asked if he had ever gotten a driver's license. He told her not to ask too much, prompting her to giggle and glance outside. Purple auroras dominated the night sky, shining like stars and revealing images of strange places, seas of mercury, clouds of floating ice, and green lightning coursing through black space. The highway stretched endlessly, surrounded by a red desert, with another highway visible in the distance. The temperature had risen to a warm, comforting level. Astonished, Livia asked what this place was as they exited the car. Ryan explained it was a thin place, a natural space anomaly he nicknamed the Midnight Road. Livia pointed to two silhouettes on the distant highway, and Ryan raised his hand. One silhouette imitated him. She admitted she could not see anything, tears gathering in her eyes, not about her vision, but something deeper. They sat at the highway's edge, feet dangling above the desert, and Ryan offered Livia sushi with chopsticks. After wiping her tears, she asked if space folded back. Ryan confirmed, explaining the highway stretched 30 kilometers before looping back, shorter on the sides. Livia inquired if he had made the place or if another genome had built it. Ryan denied creating it, calling it a natural phenomenon accessible only with genius technology. He described the colored dimensions as realms above their reality, beyond space and time as most understood, following the same time stream. Livia guessed it was an alternate universe, but Ryan corrected her, comparing it to a cave inside a mountain, where time folds due to gravitational or electromagnetic anomalies. He speculated the place was close to the Purple World, a border realm between their universe and the crossroads of all space and time. She explained she could not observe anything within the colored dimensions except the blue one, which was why she could not detect Ryan, who existed in two dimensions at once. Ryan noticed Livia seemed reluctant to finish her food and asked if she disliked it. She admitted she hated sushi, apologizing sheepishly. Ryan's heart skipped a beat, surprised she disliked Japanese food. Livia quickly reassured him that she loved the place and the gesture, which more than compensated for the food. Ryan muttered that he would have to reload the date, calling it imperfect. Livia protested seriously, placing a hand on his arm and squeezing it, insisting the moment's genuineness made it enjoyable. Ryan teased her, brushing his finger against her cheek, causing her to blush deeply. He complimented her smile, and she laughed, almost spitting out her food. She asked if that pick-up line ever worked, and he said more than she thought. She replied it did not work on her and challenged him to do better. Instead of responding verbally, Ryan set aside the sushi plates distance, grabbed Livia by the waist, and swiftly lifted her onto his lap. She squealed in surprise, laughing and blushing so intensely Ryan wondered if she might faint. She scolded him for going too far, but he insisted his lap was more comfortable than the interdimensional highway's concrete and asked if she preferred a nobler seat. Livia joked she ought to have him whipped but suspected he might enjoy it. He agreed, calling her mistress. The mafia princess laughed heartily, accepted the throne of Romano, and settled comfortably against Ryan's chest. He sensed her quickened heartbeat beneath her skin and noted the scarlet streak on her face had softened to a light blush. He understood the situation was new to her. She had only dated Felix before, who had never been as comfortable with physical contact. Livia pointed at the alien mirages in the sky, pictures of other worlds unlike Earth, and asked if Ryan could reach those places. He confirmed he could reach some and planned to visit others. She commanded him to take her along when he did, to make up for his bold transgression. Ryan teased her about committing more crimes, and she coyly suggested she might punish him or not, placing her hands on his. She asked how he discovered these thin places, and Ryan explained he learned of them researching particle physics in Switzerland, warning her not to go to Monaco. Curious, she asked what happened there, as her power could not reveal it. Ryan replied darkly that it was shrimps and caviar until one could no longer endure it, hinting at a traumatic experience. Livia frowned, sensing Ryan's unease, and told him that his explanation didn't clarify anything. She insisted that something must have happened in that place, something that hurt him deeply. Ryan's first instinct was to deny it, but her firm gaze stopped him. He admitted that he had lived a full life there, a full life that weighed on him like a boulder around his ankle. He had never told anyone before, carrying that secret alone through time. But he believed Livia would understand, having seen whole lifetimes through her power. Though she couldn't fully comprehend his burden, she could imagine it. Ryan confessed that he truly meant a full life when he said he stayed there. Livia's expression shifted to horror as she covered her mouth, whispering, "No." Ryan looked away at the otherworldly desert beneath the highway, silent. Livia asked if that was why he always claimed to be immortal and whether Len knew. Ryan said no, explaining that Shorty already had enough burdens and ghosts. Livia was the only one who knew. Livia hesitated, then asked if he had a family. Ryan admitted he never dared to have one, fearing that even a slight misalignment in timing during conception would result in a different child being born from loop to loop, something he couldn't survive mentally. Livia apologized for asking, then gently touched his chin to make him look at her. She confessed that she had seen other lives she could have lived with Felix, growing old together and having children, but she couldn't make those possibilities real. She admitted she couldn't fully understand his experience because watching was not the same as living, but she knew how deep the pain went. She brushed her hand against his cheek and promised he didn't have to suffer alone anymore. She swore to help carry his burden. Ryan thanked her, taking her left hand and kissing it gallantly. Having her by his side, he felt he could carry others through time, build lasting friendships, and maybe even a family. He vowed to return the favor. Livia admitted that she had already received it, explaining that she'd had her power for nearly 15 years but had never gone so long without using it since childhood. It was both refreshing and scary. Ryan sympathized, saying he felt that way whenever Cancel entered the picture. His power could be a pain, but it was also reassuring. He explained that he believed the best gift he could offer her was the unexpected. Livia fell silent, gazing at the alien horizon, and Ryan guessed what weighed on her mind. She confirmed that she had seen her father wage war in the future but asked to keep the moment blissful and not ruin it with sorrows. Ryan joked that they were the best therapists for each other, tightening his hold on her waist and brushing his cheek against her neck. Livia chuckled bitterly and admitted she had dreamed that Felix would ride a white stallion into her room and carry her away from the city, a foolish childhood dream she still hoped might come true. Ryan teased about knights in power armor and lasers replacing swords. Livia playfully mentioned that Dynamis had lightsabers and suggested he take a blue one while she took the red, joking she loved the dark side but preferred him on the side of the angels. They recalled the fun they had during their meta run, despite its grim ending. Livia told Ryan that no matter how much he tried to hide it, his true good and gentle self shone through. She vowed to stop whatever her father planned, and Ryan promised to help. Livia acknowledged he had already helped more than he knew or should have and urged him not to go further. Ryan agreed he didn't have to, but wanted to. They locked eyes for several minutes, Ryan seeing surprise, compassion, joy, gratitude, and something deeper in Livia's blue eyes. Ryan suggested they leave since it was past midnight, but Livia asked to stay a little longer, and they sat in comfortable silence watching the auroras. Later, Ryan drove Livia back to Mount Augustus, stopping before the fortified fence as the clock struck 2 in the morning. He joked about his date review, but Livia remained silent, her head resting against her hand and her eyes gazing beyond the window, perhaps regretting that her blue power had had returned. Ryan cleared his throat and called her name. Livia said she needed to show him something and, after waiting for the entrance portal's camera to open the doors, invited him inside. Ryan warned her that her father would know, and Livia met his gaze, confirming she understood the consequences and had made the choice as an act of rebellion. Ryan drove the Plymouth Fury up toward the villa at Mount Augustus summit, ignoring the guards protecting the property. He parked near the house's entrance and followed Livia inside. The villa was dark, but Livia knew it well and guided him through white corridors lined with marble deity statues and pillars, reflecting lightning but's obsession with Roman architecture. Ryan paid little attention to his surroundings, focusing on Livia's back and noticing the shivers along her bare shoulders, her body tense with anxiety. Eventually, Livia led him to a room with a large red door. She froze briefly, exhaled heavily, and opened it. Ryan entered a bedroom nearly as large as his former luxury apartments, decorated in a modern style with paintings of cities, smiling families, and natural wonders covering the walls next to shelves of dusty books. A reinforced window overlooked a beautiful terrace, and a king-sized bed rested against one wall. Livia closed the door behind them, sat on the mattress without a word, and clasped her hands together. She avoided Ryan's gaze, looking down with a flushed face and short breaths, terrified to ask a question. Ryan cleared his throat and called her name. She meekly asked if he wanted to kiss her, looking up at him, afraid of his reaction. His lips met hers, and neither spoke for the rest of the night. It was May 8th for the 17th time, and Ryan Romano had died happy, or so it seemed, until he woke in a king-sized bed, tangled in Livia's arms. He had fought Ghoul again in his sleep before snapping out of the nightmare. Usually indifferent to dying and starting anew, Ryan now feared being forgotten by her. Livia held him tightly, her arms around his neck, her chest against his, a leg draped over his thigh. Her silver hair framed her peaceful face as she lightly snored, a sound Ryan found endearing despite contemplating earplugs. In his long life, Ryan had been with many, and he believed lovemaking revealed character. Len had been hesitant and vulnerable, the doll curious and playful, Jasmine wild and energetic. Livia, however, had been just right, delicate, attentive, considerate, with laughter that eased him even at odd moments. For a brief moment, Ryan forgot Psycho's bloodstream and the fact he had just been with Lightning But's daughter in his own home. Livia was his entire world. He wanted to wake her, hold her hands, and kiss her, but seeing her sleep so soundly and blissfully, he refrained. In her dreams, she appeared happier than he had ever seen. Hunger eventually pulled Ryan away. He remembered the kitchen on his way to Livia's room and decided to prepare breakfast, certain Augustus' daughter would enjoy waking to pastries. When Ryan tried to slip from the bed, Livia tightened her hold even in sleep. He had to freeze time to escape her grasp and replace himself with a pillow, but when time resumed, her frown made Ryan feel something unfamiliar, loved. She wanted him so close she wouldn't let him go, even in dreams. Once, fear would have driven him away, fearing loss and pain if she forgot him, but now he longed to return. The room reeked of sex, so Ryan opened the windows to air it out. The morning sun blinded and burned his skin like a vampire, but he quickly recovered, recalling only redheads feared sunlight for lacking a soul. His clothes were dirty, so the naked courier explored the bedroom and found a white bathrobe with cat motifs, possibly once belonging to Felix. He donned the robe and slippers before moving to the door. He paused to examine the paintings, childhood portraits of Livia with her parents, Augustus smiling warmly, a rare sight that humanized the usually grim mob Zeus. The paintings also depicted cities like New York with a single tower replacing the World Trade Center and Paris with zeppelins and steam-powered devices, suggesting Livia's fascination with alternate universes or dreams of happier realities. Ryan slipped out quietly and found the kitchen, where old and new blended, high-tech appliances faced a marble counter adorned with ivory statues of Roman deities, Venus and Mars holding hands, Jupiter triumphant, Diana and Apollo hunting side by side. Inspired, Ryan set to prepare breakfast. He placed a silver platter on the counter and cooked fried eggs, bacon, coffee, and French croissants, mindful of Livia's slender frame. He planned to make pancakes for her tomorrow. While cooking, Ryan's eyes fixed on the Jupiter statue, which seemed oddly familiar, an exact likeness of Augustus, standing still and gazing at the counter. Dropping his utensils, he stepped aside, but the statue's eyes didn't follow. Unlike Augustus' usual intimidating lightning aura, this statue bore none. Ryan wondered if Mob Zeus was arrogant enough to fill his villa with self-portraits or if something else was at play. Curiosity overcame him, and he waved his hand before the statue's eyes, which remained unresponsive. He joked aloud, pointing at the window, but the statue showed no reaction. Frustrated, Ryan poked its nose and decided to stop. Suddenly, the statue's eyes blinked and glanced down at Ryan, who recoiled, reminded of a grandfather with Alzheimer's recognizing recognizing his son. Was Augustus sleeping with his eyes open, or was a seizure caused by his tumor? Ryan greeted him casually, trying to ease the tension, aware that lightning but would not welcome anyone dating his daughter. Augustus squinted and asked who Ryan was, his voice calm but intimidating. Ryan replied with a joke, calling himself Batman, but unease lingered. Recognizing the bathrobe, Augustus' eyes flared with crimson lightning. Ryan realized wearing Livia's robe might have been unwise. Attempting to leave, Ryan was stopped when Augustus grabbed his shoulder, invading his space like Germany with Poland. "You are not going anywhere," Augustus said, voice threatening. "Thief." Ryan considered the accusation absurd. He was rich and didn't steal. He explained he was a good friend of Livia's and had been invited for a sleepover. Augustus tightened his grip on Ryan's shoulder, accusing him of lying and warning that his daughter would have informed him if anything was amiss. He claimed Ryan had been foolish to bypass the guards and come there. Ryan tried to explain it was late and suggested checking the cameras or asking Livia, but Augustus interrupted, insisting Ryan would not get near his daughter and demanded the truth before threatening to tear off his limbs. Recognizing Augustus' paranoia, Ryan realized nothing he said would change the mob boss's mind. He considered running to Livia to clear things up but feared Augustus could strike him with lightning inside his time stop, which would cause Livia to forget the night and him. Ryan decided to delay and hope Livia would wake up soon. Augustus pressed again, demanding to know where Ryan found the clothes. Ryan froze time and remained motionless. Augustus blinked, glanced around, and sighed, waiting for time to resume with a look of resigned acceptance. When time resumed, Ryan feigned confusion and asked Augustus to repeat himself. Augustus started speaking again, but Ryan froze time once more, enjoying the mob boss's growing frustration. Augustus snarled, clenched his jaw, and when time resumed, Ryan apologized with a mocking tone and asked if Augustus needed medicine. Augustus waited cautiously before speaking again, only for Ryan to freeze time once more. This time, Augustus squinted thoughtfully, observing the electrons moving in Ryan's brain and deducing that Ryan was the source of the temporal anomaly. He ordered Ryan to stop immediately. Ryan maintained his act as time resumed, and Augustus opened his mouth again, only for time to freeze once more. Suddenly, Augustus lifted Ryan by the neck above the ground. He accused Ryan of mocking him. Ryan kicked and punched Augustus's arm during the frozen time, but the mob boss remained unfazed, showing no reaction to being harmed. Ryan realized he needed the Saturn armor to use his black superpower to damage Augustus. As time resumed, Augustus sneered at Ryan's attack and gave him a final chance to reveal where he found the clothes. Ryan blurted out that they came from Augustus's daughter's wardrobe. Augustus noticed Ryan's sparkling eyes, messy hair, and the breakfast prepared for two, finally understanding the situation but unwilling to admit it. He tightened his grip around Ryan's neck, lifting him until his head touched the ceiling, demanding to know what Ryan had done to his daughter. Ryan tried to respond but could not speak due to the chokehold. Augustus eventually loosened his grip enough for Ryan to breathe and stared into his eyes. He asked if Ryan had slept with his daughter, his fury far more threatening than before. Ryan, knowing nothing he said would save him, answered affirmatively. Augustus slammed Ryan against the counter with brutal force, cracking the marble and shattering a coffee cup. Ryan gasped for air as he hit the ground chest first. Augustus released him but towered over him like a specter of death, his body crackling with crimson lightning as electrical devices malfunctioned. He declared Ryan would die begging, using a cruel slur. Ryan coughed defiantly, admitting the encounter had been unprotected. Augustus then zapped Ryan with a painful but non-lethal electrical blast, causing his skin to burn and the bathrobe to smoke. Ryan's body trembled as the lightning stimulated his nerves, making him feel as if on fire. Suddenly, Livia's shrieking voice echoed in the kitchen, but Augustus increased the voltage, intent on killing Ryan. Time skipped forward, and when it resumed, Livia had seized Augustus's arms, her protective embrace shielding Ryan. She wore a black bathrobe and no slippers, indicating she had rushed to the kitchen upon waking. Augustus dropped the lightning halo but remained enraged as he stared sternly at Livia. He accused her of using her power on him, and she hissed back that he had been electrocuting her boyfriend. Augustus flinched at her words, and seeing her revealing dress and the intimate way she held Ryan dispelled any remaining doubt. Ryan could hear Livia's accelerating heartbeat beneath the cotton. Augustus glared at Ryan with disgust, calling him a miscreant, but Livia defended him as kind and noble. Ryan, still struggling to move due to the effects of the lightning, muttered, "Conqueror of Monaco." Augustus ignored Ryan and studied Livia imperiously. She locked eyes with her father, refusing to back down. Augustus asked how long their relationship had lasted. Livia bit her lower lip and said a little more than 1 week, including the previous loop, considering the Star Studio raid their first date. Augustus angrily asked if this was about Felix and revenge for his abandonment. Livia replied firmly that she chose Ryan for himself. Augustus's eyes flared with lightning as he declared she had chosen wrong, calling Ryan a clown and a parasite interested only in her beauty, money, and power. Livia retorted that Augustus said that about everyone. Augustus insisted it was true and questioned whether Ryan would be interested in her if she were not his daughter. Livia told Augustus that he did not know Ryan, and if he thought she had not done her research, then he did not truly know her either. Ryan almost spoke but wisely remained silent, aware that one wrong move could provoke Augustus's wrath before Livia could intervene. Augustus scowled angrily and ordered Livia to step aside. She hesitated briefly but stood firm, refusing to let him harm Ryan as he had done to Narcinia's parents. Augustus asked who had told her about that, suspecting Felix, and threatened that Felix would pay for slandering him. Livia dismissed the relevance of the source and declared that Augustus would not touch Felix or Ryan, asserting her adulthood and right to date whom she wished. Augustus raised his voice, commanding obedience, but Livia warned that she would leave if he harmed either of them. The threat silenced Augustus, revealing a vulnerable, lonely man beneath his tyrannical exterior. Livia said she would leave and never return, telling him to keep his empire for Bacchus and Mars. Augustus softened slightly, reminding her that as his heir and daughter, he had a duty to protect her from unseen threats, mentioning her mother. Livia insisted she could protect herself, even from him. Augustus clenched his fists tightly and accused Felix of being a traitor and Ryan of turning Livia against him. Livia countered that Augustus was doing that himself. Augustus became motionless like a statue. Livia pleaded for him to accept Ryan, saying Ryan was kind and made her smile. After a tense silence, Augustus demanded Ryan's name. Ryan introduced himself as Ryan Quicksave Romano and mentioned his immortality, but Augustus interrupted, threatening to kill him if he disrespected Livia. Ryan acknowledged the threat with a sarcastic, "Yes, lightning dad," and Augustus warned that he would kill Ryan if he broke Livia's heart or broke up with her. Ryan repeated the phrase each time, balancing assertiveness with respect. Livia whispered her thanks, holding Ryan's hand. Augustus stormed out, furious, ignoring Ryan and punching a wall, his fist passing through stone. Ryan coughed and remarked that this was almost exactly how he expected to meet Livia's parents. Once Augustus was gone, Livia hissed at Ryan for wandering off before she woke, fearing for his safety. Ryan explained he had wanted to prepare breakfast, pointing to a silver platter with pastries intact but missing coffee cups. Livia's anger turned into a blush and a bittersweet smile. She said they would go to Venus and Narcinia, who would heal Ryan's wounds quickly. Ryan said it could wait a little. Livia reminded him he had been struck by lightning. Ryan joked about it not being the first time and asked if she had ointment. She nodded and said she would apply it while he returned to bed, promising to bring breakfast properly afterward. Ryan asked what would come after that. Livia smiled and kissed him briefly. He guessed the next breakfast would be strawberries. In the Vatican's Sistine Chapel at midnight, Cardinal Andreas Torque admired Michelangelo's frescoes, recalling how even atheists doubted their disbelief upon seeing such divine art. He lamented tourists who photographed the chapel without appreciating its grandeur. Footsteps echoed as Inquisitor Ambrosio, older and balding with a golden beard, greeted the cardinal. Ambrosio's green eyes shone with the same fiery zeal that warmed Andreas's heart. Andreas, one of the youngest cardinals appointed by His Holiness Jean Paul II, preferred working in the shadows and had no great public deeds. The Vatican's secret service, the Malleus Maleficarum, was unknown even to most of its members. Officially, the church remained neutral and relied on diplomacy, but in truth, it wielded fiery swords to protect the faith and advance Catholic interests worldwide. The Malleus Maleficarum kept the Pope informed of all threats to the true faith. When Andreas had joined the service, he had started as an inquisitor, the lowest rank of the secret fraternity. He had spent most of his career undermining the communist influence in Eastern Europe and revitalizing the church's presence in the broken regions of the USSR. 7 years ago, upon becoming the organization's inquisitor, General Andreas Torque had worked on behalf of His Holiness to monitor terrorist groups in the Middle East. Despite Jean Paul II being on his deathbed and surrounded by scheming cardinals, the Malleus Maleficarum continued tirelessly to fulfill the Pope's wish for universal peace. Andreas was accustomed to fighting human evil, but the horrors they now faced were something unnatural. In a quiet corner, two priests sat on a bench as Father Ambrosio handed Andreas a 25-page file labeled only Stanford Incident. Andreas' eyebrows furrowed deeper with each line he read, and he scowled upon reaching the first picture. He asked who else knew about the incident, and Ambrosio replied that only the Americans and themselves were aware for now, but a video had already surfaced online, making it only a matter of time before MI6 and the Russians discovered it as well. The internet made secrecy difficult. Andreas was surprised the Americans had kept such a large event under wraps but doubted it could last. They could hide a village's destruction but not a roaming monster. The photo showed a white-skinned, faceless beast lifting a car effortlessly. Its abnormally long arms and a luminous glow where its face should have been marked it as a creature at least 6 meters tall, surrounded by a swirling blue mist. Andreas recognized it as a demon from the Holy Scriptures and declared it Satan's work. Ambrosio corrected him grimly, saying it had once been a man, urging Andreas to continue reading. Andreas summarized the report aloud: Stanford, Nevada, 202 inhabitants, half dead or missing, the rest in government custody. The event had occurred on November 14th, 6 days before the report reached Andreas. Survivors claimed the monster had emerged from the local clinic around 7:30 p.m. and rampaged, tearing men apart and spreading a mist that turned people feral. By the time the government quarantined the area, the monster had escaped into the Mojave Desert. The lack of communication coverage had delayed response but facilitated cover-up. Andreas noted that all previous incidents had happened in isolated areas, but Ambrosio added that none had such deadly consequences. The monster remained at large, and the U.S. government had yet to capture it. Flipping the page, Andreas found a photo of a gaunt man named James Poole. Ambrosio explained that Poole was a poor repairman scheduled to receive a second tetanus vaccine after the first was found to be a placebo. The town's doctor, Jason Hopfield, was supposed to administer it at 7:30 p.m. The doctor's body had been found gutted from chin to groin. Both vaccines came from a private company called New H. Ambrosio noted Americans' mistrust of healthcare, with some seeking alternative sources due to fears of government microchips. Andreas prayed silently for the doctor and patient, then asked what was known about the company. Ambrosio admitted the paper trail led nowhere. Andreas clenched his teeth, suspecting another dead end. Ambrosio disagreed, pointing out that the town's sheriff had taken a photo of the vaccine deliverer, whose behavior had unsettled him. Andreas quickly found the photo of a woman with short black hair and blue eyes, wearing a cap during delivery. It was the clearest image the Malleus Maleficarum had obtained. Andreas inquired about the photo's timestamp. Ambrosio replied it was taken at 1 a.m. Universal Time Coordinated. Andreas closed the file and revealed that Inquisitor Silas had sighted the same woman near an illegal laboratory in an Uzbekistan border town at 2 a.m. Universal Time Coordinated before going silent. The laboratory had been destroyed by the time reinforcements arrived, and Silas was missing. Andreas feared the worst but held on to hope. Ambrosio asked if Andreas was sure it was the same woman. Andreas confirmed Silas' description matched the photo. The agent had been tracking her for a year, since the burning woman incident in Tajikistan. Ambrosio questioned how a woman could be in two places on opposite sides of the earth within an hour. Andreas suggested she might be in two places at once. He asked if facial recognition software had been used on the photo. Ambrosio confirmed it had, yielding the name Eva Fabre. The name sounded familiar to Andreas, who recalled the Gaipan French files concerning the 1992 Antarctica mass suicide. Although France had split from the Catholic Church a century ago, the faith still had allies in high places. A French general had shared copies of these files with the Malleus Maleficarum, some of which were disturbing. France maintained an official research station in Antarctica studying penguins, but Andreas knew of a secret inland laboratory called Station Orpheon dedicated to bacteriological weapons research. Eva Fabre had been the lead geneticist at that base. On the night of December 12, 1992, Station Orpheon contacted the French Ministère de la Défense to report a peculiar event, Andreas whispered. The scientists had witnessed a flash of purple light in the sky, followed by an unidentified object crashing into a nearby glacier. 2 days later, French authorities lost contact with the station. When soldiers arrived to investigate, they found 22 of the 23 researchers dead. An experimental, deadly bacterium had escaped and infected the staff. The soldiers initially believed it was an accident until they discovered the radios had been sabotaged. Although almost all researchers were accounted for, Eva Fabre's body was never found. The French government quietly covered up the incident and, after 5 years of searching for the missing scientist, closed the file. They assumed Eva Fabre had caused the outbreak before killing herself, attributing the tragedy to isolation-induced madness. Investigators found no evidence of a meteorite impact, not even via satellite surveillance. The event joined the other strange tales in the Gaipan files and was forgotten. Ambrosio searched inside his garment for a photo and handed it to his superior. Torque raised an eyebrow before comparing it to the sheriff's snapshot. Not only could Eva Fabre teleport, but she hadn't aged in nearly 12 years either. Somehow, the cardinal was not surprised. After placing all the pictures inside the file and closing it, Andreas asked about the new H-Lead's level of secrecy. Ambrosio explained that the Americans couldn't find anyone employed by the company, but his informers had more luck tracing the vehicle used for delivery. It had been purchased through an American shell company owned by a Swiss bank, likely the same bank that funded the illegal lab in Uzbekistan. Andreas ordered Ambrosio to find someone and make them talk, noting that the incidents were escalating in severity and building towards something. Ambrosio revealed that a confessor had informed him one of the bank's administrators might be open to collaborating with the church's investigation. When Andreas asked if it was for the sake of his soul, Ambrosio replied it was for the sake of his bank account. The cardinal scowled deeply upon hearing the hefty price for the administrator's cooperation, comparing it to Judas's 30 silver coins. Ambrosio noted that traders were more expensive nowadays due to supply and demand. Andreas decided to ask for the administrator's help and planned to wire the money to the usual account, warning Ambrosio not to fail. Ambrosio inquired about the nature of their investigation. The cardinal admitted he did not know and feared the unknown. Communists and terrorists were human, but the woman and the abominations were something else. Andreas believed time was running out, as evidenced by the snapshot reaching them, indicating she was no longer hiding. With His Holiness nearing death and a crisis looming, the church had to act before it was too late. Ambrosio prayed for the Lord's guidance before taking his leave, leaving the cardinal alone in the chapel. Andreas's eyes wandered to the ceiling, where God's hand reached for the first man, as he pondered the inexorable progression of events. A string of disappearances began in early 2002 across the southern hemisphere. In Brazil, South Africa, Australia, and Tanzania, hundreds vanishing without a trace in isolated areas, with the same woman cited in 3 cases. Then people began disappearing in the northern hemisphere. In 2003, a woman spontaneously caught fire in Tajikistan, killing 14. A laboratory was discovered in Siberia containing human test subjects with extra organs or limbs, all missing persons from the previous year. A scaled creature capable of invisibility was caught on tape in Utah. In 2004, a man shot a Serbian war criminal in his home, but authorities learned the killer was composed of bolts and wires. Sarajevo suffered unexplained earthquakes, with witnesses swearing they heard gears moving beneath the earth. Now, Andreas Torque was beginning to see the bigger picture uniting these events into a coherent narrative. It clicked when he heard the word vaccine. Eva Fabre was testing something on people, turning them into monsters. That was the only explanation that made sense, though he could not understand the science or sorcery involved. Whatever the case, this wicked woman threatened the world's natural order and had to be stopped. The cardinal intended to find Eva Fabre before she claimed more victims, listen to her tale, allow her to confess her sins for absolution, and then burn her like a witch. Andreas looked away from the ceiling as new footsteps echoed in the chapel. Ambrosio's had been soft and careful. These were firm, heavy with power and purpose. The man entering was in his mid-50s, a veteran of half a dozen mob wars, a titan in a red suit bought with drug money. The cardinal could almost hear the blood dripping from his hands, though they appeared clean. His cold, heartless eyes revealed everything. One could not see this man without doubting his true nature. Janus, the cardinal greeted. Andreas, the man replied with a shark-like glint in his eyes. You look concerned. I am. We live in strange, dangerous times. The cardinal invited the mafioso to sit, but he declined, saying the bench was warm. I would prefer we meet in the classical art gallery, the mob boss replied, not bothering to look at the ceiling. Janus Augusti was godless but served the Lord all the same. What is on your mind, my friend? Janus asked, looking down on the seated priest. Though many would tremble before him, Andreas remained serene. I assume this must be urgent to organize this meeting so late. I will go straight to the point. The cardinal took a deep breath, hoping not to resort to this. I need millions. You will have your funds if you clean them, Janus said. Some officials in the Vatican Bank laundered mafia money for personal gain, but Andreas did it for a higher cause. The Malleus Maleficarum required a black budget, independent from the Holy City's finances, to maintain plausible deniability. It was a dirty job, but forgiven if done in the Lord's service. Janus was no member of the Malleus Maleficarum, and the less he knew about the Vatican secrets, the better. Andreas knew that if Janus gained influence over the organization, he would corrupt it as he had many others. His power over the Neapolitan Camorra was nearly unmatched, and he intended to expand. Few could resist him for long. Janus smelled weakness like a shark detecting blood miles away. "The situation must be dire for you to ask for so much," he said, eyeing the priest suspiciously. "If you need my protection, you only need to ask. The Lord protects me. He would not protect you from me if I wished you harm," Janus boasted blasphemously, but was not to be underestimated. He had filled cemeteries, cementing his empire with blood and tears. "But I am genuine. You are almost a friend now, and I need men with your talents. I may serve as your wife's confessor, but you are a necessary evil as far as I am concerned, Janus," the cardinal replied. "Let's keep it that way." The mob boss chuckled and remarked that being a necessary evil was fitting, as he separated the worthy from the unworthy, claiming truly good and strong men wouldn't need his services. Andreas caught the taunt and asked if Janus thought of him as evil or weak. Janus replied that there was no good or evil, but wondered what the Pope would think seeing them together, doubting his approval of Andreas' work. Andreas replied that what His Holiness did not know could not harm him, explaining he performed the dirty work to keep the Pope's hands clean for the greater good. Janus did not believe him, judging by his amused expression. He said that as long as Andreas cleaned the blood off his family's money so he could pay for his daughter's birthdays, he would let him cling to his delusions. Andreas ignored the taunt and dignifiedly asked how little Livia was. Janus' face softened as he said she had asked for a pony. Andreas smiled and said she was wise beyond her years but still a child. Janus mentioned that his wife said he spoiled Livia rotten and asked if it was a sin to indulge a child. Andreas replied he could not say, having never had one. Janus searched inside his suit and produced a small bag full of colored crystals, throwing it at Andreas, who caught it instinctively and frowned in disgust. Janus explained it was their new product and that he had heard Andreas was interested in mind-opening experiments. Andreas flinched, and a smile appeared at the edge of Janus' lips. Andreas wondered how Janus knew and if he was under surveillance. He told Janus to take it back, asserting he did not need it. Janus suggested Andreas toss it in the nearest trash can if he truly was the good man he believed himself to be, but if Janus was correct about his true self, he would welcome him with open arms when he was ready to accept his true nature. Janus then walked away, leaving Andreas alone with the crystals. Inside the Vatican, Andreas barricaded the chapel's doors with benches, hearing the mob's footsteps outside. He knew they would get through. None of his agents had evaded them for long, and they had kept him for last. Andreas reflected on his failure and the madness overtaking the world. Iron pillars had risen from beneath Sarajevo and other Balkan cities, pouring out metal men and drones, other human monsters she had released. His Holiness had died of natural causes, mercifully spared the horror ahead. Father Ambrosio had been killed by Eva Fabre, along with his Swiss informer, but before dying, Ambrosio had sent Andreas enough information to start piecing things together. Andreas had never imagined how deep the conspiracy went. The hunters had wiped out the Malleus Maleficarum in days before the Church could stop the worldwide distribution. They had known all along and never cared. 6 months ago, Andreas was already too late. He now understood why he had never found a lead. It was an organization of one, legion in number. The others were dupes and tools to provide her with money and equipment, never trusted or informed. She had hired hundreds of companies to make deliveries, none aware they carried poison to millions worldwide. Andreas had tried to warn others, but she was everywhere, intercepting his messages and making him fear for his life. Anyone he confided in vanished without a trace. She was no longer human. Had she ever been? Andreas realized he should have gone to Janus. It made sense now. Who better than a fiend in human skin to ward off demons? He reached for the gun beneath his black garment and pointed it at the barred door. The noise outside stopped. Had they heard him? Did they know? He saw a flash of blue light behind him and spun around in panic. The chapel was filled with dozens of women in blue suits wielding strange weapons resembling rifles made of flesh and metal. They all resembled Eva Fabre, but with variations, differing eye colors and hairstyles. Andreas recognized them and tried to hide his fear, but failed. They smiled, and one spoke, saying that was her name once, but now she went by the alchemist. They broke through the barred door and surrounded him. Andreas threatened them with his gun, calling them Satan, but there were dozens, maybe 100, and he had only 5 shots. One Eva said she had once been as human as Andreas and that demons existed, but not beneath their feet, in the grim darkness of space above. Another, with burns on her face, said that in other worlds, the demons had already come. Andreas warned them to stay back, finger near the trigger, but their circle tightened. One said mankind must evolve to become the universal master race, surpassing natural selection and entering intelligent design. genuine. Another added that it was their design. Andreas fired, shooting one in the head. She collapsed into blue particles as if she had never existed. The others immediately attacked. He thrashed, shot, and raged but was forced to his knees and disarmed. They searched his garment and found only the drug Janice had given him months ago. Eva Fabre examined the substance and asked if it was hallucinogenic drugs. Andreas admitted he had kept it only to study and never to use on himself. The madwomen argued about whether they had tried it during the bonding process and decided to try it now, expecting interesting results. Andreas desperately searched for an escape. He wondered why they had not killed him yet like the others. Then they brought a blue syringe and he understood. He pleaded for death, begging them not to make him one of those things. One forced the drug down his throat, tasting of salt, mushrooms, and chemicals. Another called it a reward for his persistence as they rolled up his sleeve. A third said killing him would be a waste and stabbed him with the syringe. A fourth declared his mind would shatter, but he would live. The world turned blue as the blue elixir entered his veins, and Andreas Torque screamed. Andreas' mind burned as the drug and the blue substance in his body reacted, reality crumbling around him. The chapel's ceiling swirled like an azure whirlpool, shapes collapsing, colors dancing at the edge of his vision, and the pictures of angels began to whisper. He recognized these as hallucinations, yet sensed something else wriggling inside his brain and neurons. The alchemist's poison traveled through his nerves, infecting him like a plague, his body aflame, skin flayed to raw flesh beneath. The pain was excruciating and maddening. He shouted for it to stop, and the hallucination of angels answered with a screaming chorus. Then his spirit left his kneeling flesh, his mind freed from the shackles of his body. His immortal soul was dragged into a great blue vortex, a place unlike anything he had ever seen. Without eyes, images filled his mind. The pain vanished, replaced by ethereal numbness. He became a thought, an ascending consciousness entering a bright blue world. This realm of numbers and letters was an organized archive of smells, scents, and sounds, books without pages, drives of stray thoughts, a mental world without flesh or blood, where minds transcended the storage limits of neurons. At its center stood a powerful force ruling from a throne of information. Andreas' disembodied mind could not comprehend its vastness, geometric shapes, equations, and swirling sentences unified into a single divine whole. The entity noticed Andreas and studied him. It ripped his mind open with a stray thought, shattering the cardinal's brain into a million tiny thoughts, flipping through memories like a child through a book. There was no pain or comfort. The being felt neither love nor hate, only curiosity. It disassembled Andreas down to his molecules, seeking to understand why he needed a heart, a brain, how he fit together, what he feared, his preferences, his reasons for living. The entity asked all the questions and received all the answers. It recorded every thought Andreas had ever had, every sensation he had ever felt, breaking down his existence to its foundations. Andreas did not know how long this took, centuries or minutes, but in the end, the Ultimate One understood him more than he knew himself. Then it reconstructed Andreas' mind, but instead of returning it to his limited brain, the entity shared back knowledge. Mysteries of the stars and cosmic principles were revealed, questions about man's origins and purpose answered. It taught him the true history of the saints and prophets he had worshipped all his life. When the priest desired more, it taught him mathematics, botany, and chemistry. This knowledge imprinted into his neurons like burning letters. The experience defied description, an unimaginable pleasure and rapture as Andreas' small, weak human mind briefly melded with the divine consciousness of the supreme entity, basking in limitless knowledge. For a moment, he felt whole, stripped of doubts and fears, one with something greater, his sense of self dissolving like a droplet in the ocean. This was heaven. This was God, the entity Andreas had yearned to serve, the afterlife he desired, his mind becoming a new neuron in a universe-sized brain. Then it ended abruptly. The mental connection with the Ultimate One collapsed. His brain was cast back to earth, confined to his flesh and limited mind, back into his prison. He lay on the chapel's floor, crushed and destroyed, numb inside. Though breathing, he felt dead. Eva Fabre was gone, and he no longer cared. His eyes wandered to the Sistine Chapel's ceiling, now revealing human imperfections, slight, nearly invisible mistakes, errors, ugliness. Michelangelo's work looked crass and disordered, like horseshit. Andreas had tasted heaven, and earth now appeared hideous. He rose to his feet, spotting his gun on the ground beside the empty drug bag. He grabbed the container, licking the plastic in search of a taste of paradise, pleading to be sent back. In despair, he tore the empty bag apart and scratched his skull, feeling his mind struggle against the bone-shaped prison trying to escape and ascend. Blood dripped on his fingernails. He breathed heavily, despair and tiredness weighing on him. His mind cleared, possessed by a single purpose: to go back. Andreas stumbled out of the chapel, eyes unblinking, senses assaulted by the disordered universe around him. The Vatican trembled and crumbled, but he no longer cared about the church, the world of suffering, or Eva Fabre. He had to return to the blue world, to his new god, to that blissful afterlife. He walked into the Vatican gardens and looked at Rome. Night had fallen, though he could not tell if it was still March 27th or another night. Everywhere he looked, signs of the alchemist's plan were evident. Flames spread from St. Peter's Basilica. Giant mushrooms grew from the old historical district. ICBMs flew north toward the Balkans and Sarajevo. The old world was ablaze, and a new world would rise from the ashes. And Andreas Torque did not care.